It is our practice to start the meeting with greeting and pay some brief tributes, and then we'll sing the contact waiata. You'll be able to see this on the screen. As you can see, my name is Whaimutu. Nā reira, ki te mihi atu ki te honga mate, nā reira ki rātou ki ngā mate huhua kua haere, haere atira. Haere rā kūtau ki te wāhi nā yoki ai kūtau. Nā ki ngā maunga whakahei o te wāhi nei, ki ngā iwi kāinga o te wāhi nei, o te whakanui, tēnei mōna te whakanui ātara, me whakamihi ati kia kūtau katoa. Nā kūtau tātou i manaaki, nā reira mātau i whati mai ki rongi a kūtau. Tai atu hoki ki rātou ko tai mai wainga i a kūtau, tēnei wā. Nā reira ki a tātou, ngā kauniro tēnā tātou katoa. So as you can see from the translation, this is a tribute to our forebears and to people that have passed on. We all have people that have passed on in recent times, so this is a time to coalesce our thoughts on them and wish them well in their journey. And then for our Wellington Harbour, Whanganui Atara, and the mountains and the waters and the people who have welcomed us here and continue to welcome those who've come to stay and those of us who come in and out again. So, all of us, tēnā kūtau, tēnā tātou katoa. We're going to sing a song. Sure. So, the words of the song.
But you can read that.
At the behest of the contact staff a few years ago, it was composed by a local person, Ngāhi Wiapanui, and as you can see, it talks about the elements and our place in it and what we'd like to
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou
katoa. No mai, haere mai, ki tine hui. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Contact's annual shareholder meeting. My name is Jon Macdonald, and I'm chair of the Contact board. This meeting is webcast live for shareholders who have not been able to attend in person. For the first time this year, we're also offering our shareholders the option to join the meeting online through our share registry, Link Market Services virtual meeting portal. We hope that holding a virtual meeting will support greater engagement and participation amongst our shareholders. I would like to extend a warm welcome to those who are watching online. For those guests who are here in person, in the unlikely event of an emergency, if the fire alarm sounds, please follow the instructions of the ushers out of the nearest exit and assemble across the road from the hotel entrance. In the event of an earthquake, please drop, cover, hold, and then follow the directions of the venue staff. As a quorum is present and due notice of this meeting has been given, I declare the meeting duly constituted and open for business. I would like to introduce the others with me on the stage. To my immediate left is our Chief Executive, Dennis Barnes. Next to Dennis is Dame Therese Walsh. Next to Therese is Jon Macdonald. And beside him is Eleanor Trout. On my immediate right is our General Counsel, Catherine Thompson. Next to Catherine is Whaimutu, then David Smal, and next to David is Victoria Crone. Other members of Contact's senior leadership team are also here today, as well as representatives from the auditors, KPMG. As you have noted, today's meeting started with a greeting from Whaimutu, followed by Contact's song, Mai Ranga, which is customarily sung to support the greeting. We do this because we want to acknowledge our relationship with the iwi stakeholders and the fact that we use natural resources to generate energy of which our iwi partners have an interest in, as provided in the Treaty of Waitangi. Today's meeting will commence with addresses from myself as chair and from the Chief Executive, Dennis Barnes. Following this, we will consider the financial statements, and there will be an opportunity for shareholders to ask questions they may have on the financial statements. Then we'll move on to the resolutions that are outlined in the notice of meeting. We have 5 resolutions to put to the meeting today, and these resolutions will be decided by taking a poll. There will be an opportunity for shareholders to ask questions relating to these resolutions and to raise any additional matters that shareholders wish to discuss. Those of you participating online through the virtual meeting website will be able to vote and ask questions once you have validated your registration using your shareholder number. So let me start with my address. First, you'll have noticed we look a little different. At our full year's results announcement in August, we unveiled a new brand look. Contact has evolved as a business, and so has our brand. The new logo better reflects the type of energy and services company we are. Inspired by the changing needs of our customers, we're adapting to new technologies, services, and ways of doing things. As part of the brand refresh, we also reviewed behaviours we expect of our people. You can see these on the slide behind me. These behaviours form part of the code of conduct and apply to everyone at Contact, including the directors. Before reviewing our performance in financial year 2018, I would like to make a few comments about the current operating environment, and that is an environment that is very different to a year ago. As widely reported, the coalition government wants to accelerate the transition to a low-carbon economy needed to tackle climate change. Contact supports the vision for a low-carbon future, and we are taking steps to play a meaningful role in helping develop cost-effective solutions to some of the difficult global issues. We will also do this through decisions we take in our generation business while providing tools to support our customers to reduce emissions as well. I'm pleased to say our fleet of generation assets is now almost 80% renewable, with our most recent developments funded without government subsidies or higher energy prices for customers. That's a fantastic result. This has resulted in a 50% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions from generation since 2012. In just the last year, we've removed 328,000 tonnes of carbon emissions from our operations. In the past year, we signed up to the Science Based Targets Initiative, which commits us to an emissions target required to keep global warming below 2%. As new scientific evidence is presented, we will continue to revisit our targets. To this end, we are currently reviewing the latest report of the International Panel on Climate Change, calling for global warming to be kept below 1.5 degrees. As well as responding to the urgent challenge of climate change, Contact is actively engaged with the Electricity Price Review Panel, the Interim Climate Change Commission, and the broader government agenda. No doubt you will have seen various comments about the price review with deliberate positions by some parties. For the record, Contact agrees with the panel's assessment that the electricity system is working well to produce reliable and sustainable electricity supply. Where it is not working so well is for those customers who are struggling to pay all their household bills. And we believe that government, social agencies, Contact and the industry can do more for these customers, and we're accelerating the design of new products to play our part. These include weekly, fortnightly billing and a prepay product. In terms of generation, we believe the current market design has ensured the right investments have been made at the right time and place and at the least cost for consumers. Any major changes in direction should only be considered with great caution. Dennis and his team are actively engaged in the electricity price review process. Dennis will speak more on this shortly. I now turn to the year in review. Contact reported a statutory profit for the year ended 30 June 2018 of $132 million, $19 million lower than the prior corresponding period, as operating earnings fell by $20 million or 4% to $481 million. In the consumer business, operating earnings were $9 million lower as increased competition in the commercial and industrial electricity segment reduced retail margins, and rising oil prices increased the cost of LPG, which is not able to be fully passed through to customers. In the generation business, operating earnings fell by $11 million, primarily as a result of ASX futures volatility with the sudden hydrological swings. For the second successive year, we experienced below average inflows in our catchment area, resulting in higher energy costs as we were forced to produce electricity from our thermal assets to replace lost hydro flows. Naturally, we are disappointed and frustrated with this outcome. Despite these impacts, our operational efficiencies, the quality of our generation assets, and our strategic access to flexible gas supply give the board confidence in the ability to generate strong free cash flow. Contact showed strong financial discipline to deliver similar year-on-year operating free cash flow of $301 million, despite lower operating earnings by reducing both operating costs and stay in business capital expenditure. In August 2017, the board revised the distribution policy, targeting distributions between 80% and 90% of operating free cash flow once net debt falls below 2.8 times EBITDA. The board was pleased to declare a full-year dividend of 32 cents per share, up 23% on the 2017 financial year. In the 2019 financial year, we are targeting 35 cents per share, up 9% on the 2018 financial year. Encouragingly, we have seen a reversion to a more normal hydrological conditions in our catchment in the current year. This, combined with the continued focus on operating performance and flexible generation assets, has resulted in a strong start to the current year. In FY18, the company continued to invest in the capability of our staff, resulting in ongoing improvements in our engagement scores. In May, staff engagement was 77%, up from 72% in October the previous year. I'm delighted to be able to announce we have been awarded the Rainbow Tick, evidencing our commitment to inclusion and diversity. In our customer business, we launched our new brand, a key part of our transformation to a digital retailing business. Our transformation is about engaging customers via digital channels and surprising them with products and services they value. This is enabling us to move closer to our aspiration to be the most advocated for retailer with the lowest cost to serve. Our generation business delivered record geothermal production and sustained cost efficiencies in the 2018 financial year, which helped offset lower than average hydro generation. With the current low hydro storage levels and constraints to gas supply, this fuel scarcity is being reflected in higher short-term wholesale prices. The current situation underlines the critical importance of having a flexible generation portfolio and strong risk management systems. In terms of maintaining our leadership position in the domestic energy sector, the board has looked at developments and trends abroad. Earlier this year, 3 members of the board joined some of the executive team to visit the global technology epicenters of San Francisco, Berlin, and London to learn about what others are doing to prepare for a low-carbon future. The board takes great confidence in the fact this country has a world-class electricity system that is trusted by consumers and is the envy of much of the developed world. Earlier this year, the board announced we would engage an external search firm to assist the board with succession planning. We were assisted in this process by the board skills matrix to assess the skills of each director against areas of competence that we were looking to acquire with any new appointment. Over the last few months, we have announced the appointment of Dame Therese Walsh, David Smal, and Jon Macdonald to the board. Shortly They will each speak to you to outline the skills they bring to the board, and I will invite you to vote on the appointment of the new members and the re-election of Whaimutu Jews. Before we go to that matter, I would like to acknowledge my predecessor, Sir Ralph Norris, for his leadership of the board since 2015. Sir Ralph successfully navigated the company through a period of substantial change and renewal and helped lay the platform for ongoing success today. I also acknowledge and thank Sue Sheldon for her outstanding contribution to the board for almost a decade, again during a period of tremendous change. Finally, on behalf of the board and leadership team, I would like to thank you all for your ongoing support of Contact. I will hand over to Dennis for the overview of the year.
Thank you, Chair. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ki a tātou kua hui mai I tēnei rā. No mai, haere mai, ki runga I tēnei kaupapa te hui a tau. Greetings to you all, to those who you've gathered here today. Welcome to the subject of the day, the annual meeting. And it's pleasing to see a number of faces in the audience from prior years. But before commencing my formal notes, I'd like to introduce my leadership team who are here today. Tanya Palmer, Venna Crawley, and of course, Catherine on the stage with me. James Kilter cannot be here today as he's overseas meeting some of our suppliers on your behalf. Lynette Glover is our acting Chief Financial Officer and has been doing an excellent job pending the arrival of our new CFO, Dorian Devers, in December. Now, if any of you have any specific questions regarding your account or our products or any service levels, Venna and his team are here to help you. As mentioned by the Chair, the Electricity Price Review Panel published its first issues paper last month, and Contact is very actively engaged in this review. News media headlines said that the panel found residential prices increased by 79% over the last 28 years. As is often the case, the headlines belie the complex facts, which show that our electricity system is providing good outcomes for customers. In a period when transmission and distribution costs have increased, retail prices have remained relatively flat since 2013. This is largely because of increased competition, switching initiatives, and transparency promoted by regulators and our customers. As shareholders, this has resulted in your earnings from retailing electricity more than halving since regulation and competition became effective. In this intensely competitive market, we are doing a good job, and I will come to what that looks like later. We do, however, agree with the panel that there is a group of customers who struggle to pay all their bills, and this isn't right. We believe the answer to this challenge is a combination of social policy intervention and more innovative products. As owners of the company, you can be assured that Contact is actively helping all our customers to maintain access to energy and to avoid incurring burdensome debt with us. Today, we offer more product and payment options than ever before, giving our customers more choice, certainty and control over their energy costs, and providing new ways to engage with the company so that we can hear their views. We're also working through the Electricity Retailers Association on access to energy projects to support vulnerable customers, and will work with the government, social agencies and others in the sector to find solutions for the most vulnerable. Our key message to the Electricity Price Review Panel is to look at the positive outcomes the current market settings have delivered and beware of changes that will undermine them or have unintended consequences. The competitive pressures in this retail market are intense, and we see this continuing. Independent retailers account for 11% or 200,000 customers in the retail market. We support 45,000 of these customers through the electricity we sell to these independent retailers. The growth of these retailers is evidence of a healthy competitive market, and we welcome that. There will be a lot more commentary and positioning through the next phase of the electricity price review. That's unavoidable, but our focus will remain firmly on delivering our strategy through product innovation and reducing our cost to serve. Turning now to the year in review, I'm pleased to note that the 2018 financial year was another good year for the business, underpinned by strong relationships with our key stakeholders in the financial, social and environmental sectors. We have over $2.7 billion in net assets, more than 64,000 shareholders and 3,500 bondholders who rely on us to deliver sustainable financial returns. And over the past year, we have reduced costs, capital expenditure and debt levels and maintained our triple B credit rating from Standard & Poor's, which we've held since 2002. This is a solid foundation for managing operational and financial risk and ensures we can access diverse and cost-effective funding and continue to grow dividends for shareholders. But as Rob mentioned, the weather gods have not been kind to Contact over the last 2 financial years, but we've remained focused on controlling the controllables on your behalf. And there is a reason to be optimistic given recent increased inflows into our hydro catchments. In terms of community engagement, we were ranked among the top 5 New Zealand companies for community engagement and investment activities, according to the Business and Community Shares Social Index, a corporate social responsibility ranking of 100 New Zealand businesses. Our staff continue to invest work time in local communities, volunteering with organisations like the Porirua Homework Club, Octacan, Sealandia, Food Bank and Lake Taupo Cycle Challenge. Our community partners regularly tell us this volunteering makes a huge impact for them. We also continue to work closely with Tangata Whenua across a wide range of initiatives and projects, such as our Māori internship programme, our Geo40 and Ngāti Tahu partnerships, and relationships with local iwi groups in Wairaki and Tauhara. We rely on natural resources to generate electricity, which is why sustainability and respect for the environment is integrated into how we do things. At our hydro operation, we worked with farmers, irrigators, environmental groups, iwi and regulators to resolve appeals on the Otago Regional Policy Statement without resorting to an environment court hearing. This collaboration is a real success story. We've continued to provide water to a third party for irrigation through our pipeline from Lake Dunstan into the Fraser River. And we also work closely with bore users in the Hawea area to manage historically low water levels. In biodiversity, we have management plans for half of our operational sites and expect to have plans in place for all our sites by September 2019. The government is committed to improving biodiversity, and we will continue to use our expertise to manage and improve biodiversity outcomes in areas under our control. We've also planted 66,000 native trees and established fencing and pest control on 78 hectares of land in partnership with community groups in Otago, Taupo and Stratford. To ensure that we take the actions that will result in a low emissions future for New Zealand, we've set emissions reductions targets. We've set these using the globally recognised and governed Science-Based Targets Initiative. And earlier this year, we joined the Climate Leaders Coalition to show our commitment to help New Zealand transition to a low emissions economy. In terms of maintaining strong cash flows and simplifying our business, We've executed 2 major transactions during the year: the sale of the Aharoa gas storage facility and the sale of the Rock Gas LPG business. Both transactions provide significant flexibility for our business. With Aharoa, we retain access to long-term gas storage services to meet our flexible thermal generation requirements without needing to own and operate the asset. This transaction was completed in early October. Similarly, the sale of the Rock Gas LPG business frees us from the commodity risk and fulfilment aspects of the LPG business, while still being able to sell the product to our mass market customers. We continue to own Rock Gas as the preconditions to completion are worked through. We've been pleased to partner with First Gas on both these transactions. In our customer business, we continue to compete hard against an ever-growing number of start-up retailers and reinvigorated incumbents. Contact's total customer numbers across electricity, gas and LPG were 570,000, up 3,700 on the previous year. And our customers continue to advocate for us in greater numbers, with our Net Promoter Score averaging plus 18 during the period, up from an average of plus 14 last year. Our success in this area has been enabled by our transformation programme, resulting in a reduction of $13 million in electricity and gas costs to serve and streamlining of customer channels. However, operating earnings in our customer business were down $109 million in financial year 18. If they were down 109, that would be a problem. Which is down on fin year 17 as LPG product costs increase and intense competition for the larger commercial and industrial customers saw margins decline. The launch of our new brand, though, does provide an exciting platform to surprise and delight our customers and move closer to our target of being New Zealand's most advocated for energy retailer with the lower cost to serve. As Rob mentioned, dry conditions impacted earnings in our generation business as low South Island inflows extended into the start of financial year 18. Hydro generation volumes were below average for the second consecutive financial year. The scheduled 5-yearly refurbishment of our Taranaki combined cycle plant in November and December of last year also impacted earnings. As a result, operating earnings from the generation business were $372 million in the period, $11 million lower than financial year 17. The full effect of the dry conditions on our financial performance were mitigated by our continuous improvement programme, which is delivering sustainable reductions in ongoing operating costs and improving the resource utilisation of our renewable assets. A key focus for this business is to position itself to support further decarbonisation of New Zealand's energy sector. We see the development of our geothermal resources playing a key role in that transition, and reducing the cost of renewable generation developments will give us options to close thermal plant if gas and carbon costs continue to rise. As we mark the 60th anniversary of the Wairakei geothermal power station this week, I'm reminded of why we are a clear leader in renewable generation, which will play an increasingly important role in New Zealand's move to a lower carbon economy. All our leaders and people in Contact work to create a culture where inclusion is the norm and diversity flourishes. As Rob mentioned, our staff engagement was up 5 percentage points to 77% from October 2017 to May this year. While we are pleased with this improvement, as a dynamic, progressive organisation, we'll continue to adapt and improve to make Contact a best-in-class employer. At Contact, our safety systems and culture empower frontline staff to take ownership of health and safety. and they've got the backing of world-class safety systems. But even with this focus, disappointingly, 14 of our people got injured during the year, most of them strains or sprains. And this is a clear sign that we need to remain vigilant around the clock and to apply the lessons gathered from all injuries and near misses. Looking to the future, as mentioned earlier, Contact supports the goal of a low-carbon future, and we will be taking a leadership role in achieving that future. We're also firmly focused on the present, with a strategy that delivers innovative products at lower costs for our customers, while decarbonising our generation business. We will continue to compete vigorously in both the retail and generation markets, and to advocate for a stable regulatory environment that delivers benefits for customers both now and in the long term. Contact is well placed to deliver sustainable financial returns to shareholders, while positioning ourselves to take advantage of opportunities in the market as New Zealand transitions to a low-carbon future. But as I do every year, I would like to thank my colleagues for their energy commitment and discipline, and to you, our shareholders, for your financial support. I'd also like to thank the board for their contribution. Their guidance and support for me and the team remains invaluable. Thank you. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you, Dennis. We're now going to move to a discussion of Contact's financial statements. Financial statements for Contact for the year ended 30 June 2018 were released to the market on the 13th of August and are set out in the annual report, which is available on our website. I would now like to open the floor to any questions you may have specifically on Contact's financial statements. There will be plenty of time later for any questions you may have of a more general nature. So we have microphones available. If you wish to speak, please put your hand up and wait for the microphone to be brought to you so we can hear all your question. Are there any questions on the financial statements?
Jon Milne, shareholder. The question I have, and I can't see it in here, is what is the expected life of our gas generation assets? If we're talking about moving to a sustainable environment, is there a risk of a stranded asset in those particular gas units? Because if you've just refurbished TCC, then that presumably is longer than the alleged 7 years life of the gas field, the major gas fields.
Thank you, Alan. I'm going to ask Dennis to answer that. He's got quite detailed knowledge both around the gas storage and the operating assets.
I think I've done the right thing by pressing.
Do you want to come?
Oh, I'll come on. Thanks, John. It's probably an asset-specific answer. Obviously, with the sale of the gas storage facility, we have no stranding risk there. We have a contract for 15 years. The gas peakers, we expect to have a long life. In an increasingly renewable world, the intermittency of renewables will need fast start peaking plants, so we expect the peakers to have a long life, so they're depreciated over, I think, 25 years on average. The Taranaki combined cycle plant, the major works we do every 5 years are depreciated over an hours fired basis. So as you use the plant, you depreciate the investment in the plant. So a large part of the Taranaki plant would be depreciated over those 5 years. But there is a balance of plant which would, if we were to close it in 5 years, would result in a stranded asset. And I'll remind you of our closure of the Otahuhu power station, where we did write off $150 million non-cash write-off from the Otahuhu power station. We don't see any indicators of that today, and we believe gas supply will be available for longer than maybe some commentators might have us believe. So hopefully that answers your question, John.
Thank you, John. Are there any other questions? Thank you. There are no questions online, so we'll now move to the formal resolutions. These are outlined in the notice of meeting sent to all shareholders in October. Voting on the resolutions will be by poll. Each resolution will be put to the meeting with the proxy votes results displayed on the screens. For those of you here with us in Wellington, you will be able to cast your vote by filling out the form you brought with you or received at the registration desk on your way in, and you will be collected at the end of the formal part of the meeting. If you're a shareholder and did not register on arrival and wish to vote, please make your way to the registration desk just outside the room, and staff from Link will assist you. If you're both a shareholder and a proxy holder, or a shareholder company representative, or have more than one holding, you would have received a separate voting card for each holding. When you vote on the resolutions, please complete all the voting cards you're given at your registration. For those attending the meeting online, you'll be able to cast your vote using the electronic voting card that you will have received when you validated your registration with your holder number. If you have any issues, please refer to the virtual annual meeting online portal guide. Each resolution is set out in the notice of meeting, is to be considered as an ordinary resolution, and as such must be approved by a simple majority of votes cast by shareholders entitled to vote and voting on the resolution. Our first resolution today relates to the re-election of one of our existing directors. It is now my pleasure to move that Whaimutu Jews be re-elected as a director of Contact. Whai chairs the Health, Safety and Environment Committee and is a member of the Audit Committee. Brief biography for Whai is set out in the notice of meeting. The board unanimously recommends that shareholders vote in favour of his re-election. I would now like to invite Whai to speak in support of his re-election.
Kia ora, Rob, tēnā koutou katoa. There are three things that I set out to do to assist Contact and the shareholders to achieve their expectations, and they come in the area of consistent performance, a real effort in building on what we've already done in terms of our people and our portfolio, and getting back to those expectations of our shareholders and stakeholders. So as we've talked about already this morning, we face continuous and continuing change in the supply of electricity to customers that needs us to be agile and alert and to keep moving to meet those requirements and do that in a sustainable, and that includes sustainably profitable way. And it means that our people have to be match fit. We use that term in the organisation, to be match fit, and measure that, and the steps change. And our people are making good progress on that. There's always more work to do. Continuous improvement is also part of what I try and get us in terms of setting standards and reaching them. And then the portfolio, we've talked about that, and a good spread of asset and making the most of what we can do in terms of going forward into the future. It's a long game. Supply of electricity is a long game, and it's not for the faint-hearted. So I have been here a few years now, and with your support would like to be here a little longer, because I think I can still make a contribution in terms of that leadership and the changes that we need to keep making and adapting to. Kia ora.
Thank you, Fi. I would now like to invite discussion on the resolution. Are there any questions that shareholders present or online would like to ask Fi? Thank you. There are no questions from shareholders attending online. For the information of shareholders, here are the proxy votes received. Please now complete your voting card beside Resolution 1. Please indicate your vote by marking either the for, against or abstain in the appropriate place in the voting card. Our second, third and fourth resolutions relate to the election of 3 new directors who have recently joined the Contact Board. It is now my pleasure to move that Dame Therese Walsh be elected as a Director of Contact. Therese was appointed to the Board with effect from the 1st of September. She brings deep financial and governance expertise to the Board and is therefore very well qualified as the Chair of the Audit Committee. She takes over this role from Sue Sheldon, who retired from the Board in August. Therese is also a member of the People Committee. A brief biography for Therese is set out in the notice of meeting. The Board unanimously recommends that shareholders vote in favour of the election of Dame Therese Walsh. I would now like to invite Dame Therese to speak before we move on to discussion on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tēnā koutou katoa e huma no mai haere mai. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today and to seek your support for my election to the Board of Contact Energy. It is lovely to be doing so in my hometown of Wellington on what is a typically beautiful Wellington day. I'm sure you'll all agree if you live in Wellington. I just wanted to tell you a brief couple of things about myself to highlight them and also to explain why I was interested in joining the Board of Contact Energy. So firstly about myself, really my career has been a game of 2 halves, quite literally. One half spent in sports leadership roles across rugby and cricket, leading global sporting events and working with the national sporting codes. And that involved working across the country with both central government, local government, regional bodies of all types and communities. Second part of my career, or the other half of my career, has been spent in financial and audit roles. And as a result, I am a fellow of the Chartered Accountants of New Zealand organisation. I'm also a very experienced audit committee chair. I seem to always end up on audit committees because of my background. So I've been in around quite a few of those and look forward to chairing the audit committee here at Contact Energy. Thirdly, my career today is a full-time professional director. I work across a number of sectors and industries in New Zealand. And with some of New Zealand's most iconic companies, I'm currently the chairman of TVNZ, chairman-elect of Air New Zealand, and a director of ASB Bank, amongst a few others. So those are some of the skills and experiences that I bring to the table. In terms of Contact Energy itself, there's a few reasons why I stand here before you today seeking your support. The first is that this is an industry which in my view is in a sort of a point of, we always use the word disruption, but for me it's more than that. It's about uncertainty, ambiguity and complexity, and those are characteristics that operate in a number of the industries that I work in, and so really exciting to be part of that change and transformation that's happening in this industry. Secondly, Contact Energy as an organisation to me is quite uniquely positioned to take up those challenges, and I say that for a number of reasons. One is in terms of the type of assets, particularly geothermal, that Contact own and operate. Secondly, the ownership structure I think gives it a really great position and a great platform to work from. But lastly, the people. I never join a board of any organisation without having thought a lot about the people that I would be working with and trying to basically govern the organisation with. And I'm very confident in the leadership, both at a management level with Dennis and the team, and at a chairman level with Rob and the rest of the board. So I'm very confident on those things. So I stand here before you, humbly seeking your support for my election today, so that I can bring the skills that I've gathered over the last 20 years to bear in the future of Contact Energy. Thank you, ngā mihi nui, kia ora koutou.
Thank you, Therese. I now open the floor to any questions that shareholders would like to ask Dame Therese. Okay, there are no questions from shareholders attending online. For the information of shareholders, here are the proxy votes received. Please now complete your voting card beside Resolution 2. Indicate your vote by marking for, against or abstain in the appropriate place on the voting card. Moving along, our third resolution relates to the election of David Smal. It is now my pleasure to move that David Smal be elected as a Director of Contact. David was appointed to the board on the 1st of October 2018 and is a member of our Health, Safety and Environment Committee. David brings extensive energy sector and regulatory experience to the board, including being part of Contact Energy's original establishment team in 1995 and 96. A brief biography for David is set out in the notice of meeting. The board unanimously recommends the shareholders vote in favour of his election. I would now like to invite David to speak.
Kia tātou, kua hui mai nei, tēnā koutou. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for that introduction, Rob, and thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. As Rob has mentioned, I was part of the team that first set up Contact back in the mid-1990s. I acknowledge Jon Macdonald was one of the directors that we very first reported to back in those long ago days. As you know, the energy sector is a critical part of almost everything that we do in modern life, as well as being central to the global challenge of climate change. As others have already said, it's becoming increasingly competitive and, like most other sectors, is being deeply impacted by ongoing and rapid technological change. Contact is well placed to grow the value of the business and to realise value from that change, and that's why I'm very keen to have the opportunity to play a part if you so decide. I believe I will bring a set of skills and experience that would enable me to help Contact make the most of those opportunities. I've worked on the design of electricity markets, on the development and evaluation of major energy sector investments. As Rob said, I've got extensive experience in economic and environmental policy and regulation, areas that will continue to be important influences of the sector through the years. As the first Chief Executive of the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, I led the merger of 4 organisations, the building of a high-performance culture and the digitising and integrating of services that government provides to business. I also led a step change in MB's commitment to health and safety and to ensuring that diversity and inclusion became very central to the core of that organisation. Contact is at a very exciting time in its history, with the opportunity to build on the considerable achievements to date, and I would very much welcome the opportunity to be part of that future if you should so decide. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you this morning. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions for David? There are no questions from shareholders online. For the information of shareholders, here are the proxy votes received. Please now complete your voting card beside Resolution 3. Please indicate your vote by marking either for, against or abstain in the appropriate place on the voting card. Our next resolution is for the election of Jon Macdonald. You will notice it is spelt differently to my name, so you can assume we're not related, and you would be right. It is now my pleasure to move that Jon Macdonald be elected as a Director of Contact. Jon joined the board very recently on the 1st of November 2018 and is a member of our People Committee. Jon's proven record of growing a successful digital business is a valuable addition to the board at a time when new technologies are impacting on the energy sector. A brief biography for Jon is set out in the notice of meeting. The board unanimously recommends that shareholders vote in favour of the election of Jon Macdonald. I would now like to invite Jon to come up and speak.
Thank you, Rob, for that kind introduction. And as you say, no relation. I should let you know, I haven't already, but a colleague of mine did remark that he thought the two of us looked very much alike. I'm not too sure how each of us should take that. So we can just casserole on that particular thought. Tēnā koutou, katoa. And I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to serve as a Director of Contact Energy. And let me start by telling you why. The first reason is that I think that Contact has a really important job to do, and that affordable, accessible and reliable electricity generated in an environmentally friendly fashion is really fundamental to the quality of life of New Zealanders. And beyond that, it's been remarked upon by a few of the speakers this morning that we are in a period of structural and technological change, and that applies both to how electricity is generated and how it's consumed. And I think that does afford Contact enormous opportunity if we can respond well and can help to lead that change, but it also exposes us to the risk of being left behind. And it's in that environment of change that I believe that I have a lot to contribute to Contact Energy. I think my main relevant experience is as the CEO of TradeMe for the last 10 years, where I've developed a lot of experience around digital businesses, technology, and equally importantly, the changing habits and expectations of consumers towards transparency, immediacy, and a greater ability to make informed choices and to control their own lives. And additionally, I'd hope that my experience as the CEO of a public company listed on both the NZX and ASX will help me to support and at times appropriately challenge Dennis and the team. I also bring governance experience, perhaps notably from being on the board of the NZX for the last 5 years. This has meant some exposure already to the electricity sector as NZX operates New Zealand's wholesale electricity market, providing services and systems under agreement from the Electricity Authority. And additionally, I bring a good grounding in the technical and engineering concepts behind electricity generation, transmission and consumption, having completed a degree in electrical engineering at the University of Canterbury. I am finishing up at TradeMe just prior to Christmas, and I intend to take on a range of non-executive positions. So I'm very comfortable that I will have the time to give this role all that it deserves. And I look forward to working hard for Contact Energy and for you, its shareholders. So thank you for your consideration, and if you choose to have me as a director, thank you in advance for your support looking ahead.
Thank you, Jon. Are there any questions that shareholders would like to ask Jon? No, there are no questions from shareholders online. For the information of shareholders, here are the proxy votes received. Please now complete your voting card. Besides Resolution 4, please indicate your voting by marking either for, against, or abstain in the appropriate place on the voting card. The final resolution to be considered relates to the auditor. I now move that the directors be authorised to fix the fees and expenses of the auditor. KPMG is Contact's auditor. This resolution proposes that the board be authorised to fix the remuneration of the auditor, which is the conventional practice for listed companies. It reflects the fact that the level of the auditor workload and therefore the fee may need to change from time to take in account of changes in the company's size and complexity, or changes in the law. KPMG audit partners are present at the meeting should any shareholders have questions of them concerning this resolution. I now invite discussion on the resolution. Thank you. Seconding's not required, but I'll take that. Thank you. There are no questions from the shareholders attending online. For the information of shareholders, here are the proxy votes received. Please now complete your voting card beside Resolution 5. Please indicate your vote by marking either for, against, or abstain in the appropriate place on the voting card. Have all those that wish to vote now voted? Would appear so. Link Market Services will now collect your voting papers. Please place your voting paper in the ballot boxes as they are passed around. Shareholders participating via the virtual meeting website should now submit their votes online. Voting will be open until the close of the meeting. I'll just pause for a few moments while the boxes go around. Okay, I think we're nearly there. Voting will be open until the close of the meeting. The votes will be counted and the results will be announced to the NZX and the ASX this afternoon. Right, we now move on to general business. This is your opportunity to discuss anything we have not already covered or ask questions of the board or management team. Does anyone present or online have a question? I will first take questions from the floor and then alternate between questions received from the floor and online. Could I ask that you ask one question at a time, and if you could please be to the point.
Nigel Fredrickson, shareholder. Dennis mentioned the weather gods earlier. I was reminded that Contact's somewhat vulnerable to dry years, and looking ahead with climate change coming in the next decade or two, even sooner, what's the outlook for Contact with changing climate and possible changing water flows into the catchments in the South Island?
Yeah, it's a good question, thank you. My understanding, and I will let Dennis add to this, is actually the climate modelling actually would indicate it's slightly more positive for Contact in that catchment area with what are predicted global effects of climate change. But Dennis, would you like to comment?
Yeah, the effects of climate change on the catchments have not really been seen to date. We have 89 years of data and the average inflows and patterns are reasonably similar. We have seen it get a little wetter in winter, so there's more falling as rain rather than snow, which is good for us because we see more customer demand in winter. Longer term, as Rob mentioned, there's some early work that ourselves and Meridian have done which suggests that actually the southwest of New Zealand might get a bit wetter as a result of climate change. But our response to that is obviously to hold alternatives to hydro when it's not raining, so we do use gas. And of course, geothermal doesn't suffer the effects of hydrology. It's base load and secure. So we are mitigating in many ways.
I think there was another question at the back there. Yeah.
Hello. Hi, I'm David Hinkston. I'm a shareholder and a consumer of Contact Energy. I've actually got 4 questions and 2 motions I'd like to. I understand one question will be answered at a time, so if I can just flag that. I'd first of all like to congratulate Contact on the meeting notice that you distributed, which recorded the time and the date of the meeting, which I think was very helpful. Perhaps that's a funny thing to appear to congratulate you on. The terms and conditions of your to consumers say that written notice of when you'll do maintenance or upgrade work will be advised to consumers, and you will give 10 days notice prior to the entry of a customer's premises. In my case, the experience of the smart meter upgrade was we received a letter advising the intention of some 3.5 months, a 3.5-month period, that the smart meter would be changed with no time given for this upgrade. I just wondered how would shareholders get on attending this meeting if you were told that the meeting was occurring over a period of some 3.5 months with no time stated? My first question is, does Contact interpret the word when on the same basis to shareholders and its consumers?
So what you've raised is clearly a consumer matter, I think, and Venna Crawley is available at the end of the meeting with his team, so you can raise any issues you have with that, but it's quite obvious the notice of meeting gives you the time of date and date that is required for the meeting. And in respect of your customer concern, I suggest you pick it up with Venna.
So I don't really feel the question's been answered in terms of the policy with respect to consumers. Are consumers treated equally as shareholders?
Well, this is an operational consumer question. We're at a shareholders meeting, and so I would ask you to stick to matters relating to the shareholder meeting. And again, I come back to Venna is available for any concerns you have about operational matters. Yes. No, sorry, when I say one question at a time. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
The second point I wanted to make was the notice or the communication we received appeared to lack some information, which I think was relevant for consumers.
Sorry, I will interrupt you there because the notice is in relation to information for shareholders, not for consumers. Sorry, would now move over to this lady for a question. I will come back to you, sir, if you have more questions, but I do want to make sure everyone gets an opportunity.
Have you investigated solar power?
Yes. I mentioned earlier in my speech in respect of a visit done by some of the directors. I was included in that, and Dennis and some of his team. It was a very illuminating visit for us in terms of looking deeper into alternatives from our existing fleet of generation assets. We clearly don't have wind or solar, and I think the thing that came back to us around solar was the cost curve around solar panels used en masse, not necessarily in the residential sort of area, but certainly solar farms used en masse have now progressed where they're quite cost competitive overseas. And so that we were able to come back and say that's something we should be investigating, and again with wind as well. So as we think about a low carbon future going forward, we look at all the things that relate to renewable energy now.
Not intelligent about things, but what about the wave energy that they have overseas?
Sorry,
The sea, they use the waves to produce energy. Have you heard of that?
I'll let Dennis make a
All right.
comment on that.
Okay.
And we did, particularly in the UK, we talked to people about that. It's fair to say there's a long way to go on the cost curve, whether that would be, I think it's a very long way on the cost curve, isn't it, Dennis? Yeah. So that one we see right out there as opposed to the more immediate ones of wind and solar.
Brian Busby, I'm a shareholder. You talked about employee engagement.
Yes.
Without wishing to go into a lot of detail, can you expand a little on what that means and how you measure it?
Yeah, so it's measured by an annual survey where all the staff are asked a series of questions, and they're quite common through particularly large corporates. They're online surveys. The first thing we look at is participation, because that in itself tells us how well people are engaged, and Contacts has very strong participation. There's a series of questions around how they feel about the company, how they get support from the company, how they feel about their being led, all those sort of things. People are given the opportunity to write comments as well, and all those comments are accumulated and into sort of word bubbles and things like that. So it's, as I say, a very common survey done amongst large corporates. It's fair to say if I look back 3 or 4 years ago at Contact, those engagement scores were not what we wanted them to be. We've seen tremendous progress in the last 2 or 3 years, and even now as you get into the 70s, to shift them 6%, 5% in a year was a really, I guess from our perspective as a board, a very pleasing outcome. And obviously, if we can make it in the 80s, then we really are starting to make it in the top quartile of companies where employees feel engaged. And I guess, a long time ago, I learnt a comment at an executive school, which was, your customers will never feel better about your company than your employees. So that's why we care about it. Of course.
So do you follow up on concerns that are raised?
Absolutely,
in those
yes.
surveys?
So there's a number of either through the comments, but bearing in mind they are confidential, but it never, it certainly means you can follow up on comments and you can see in groups as well. But also it rates managers, so it's an opportunity for the staff and groups to rate the managers above them. That's quite useful from at the executive leadership level to understand where good leaders and leaders who need help where they are. And so that's another quite useful thing that's is a strong feedback loop.
I don't think it is working. Thank you. Look, I realise there's time pressure here, so I wanted to just put one motion to the meeting. I haven't really had an opportunity to set out the reasons for the motion, but the motion is that the audit committee measure the honesty, the integrity, the quality of the power product, and respect shown to customers, and annually report on these measures to shareholders. I think a very basic reason for putting this forward is that happy customers are good business.
So what I would say, and I'm not going to put the motion to the meeting because that involves quite a process and will delay the meeting for some time. Equally, any resolution such as that would need to be done through the resolutions at the notice of meeting. So from that perspective, I'm not up for delaying the meeting for what could be a reasonable amount of time. But what I would say, and I would encourage you to talk to Vena, but equally, I would say that throughout New Zealand, in the corporate world, the issue around customer complaints and conduct and products is very much in the bright lights of across all companies. And I say that because all companies I'm involved in, and my fellow directors as well. So you can be rest assured it's not just the audit committee, it's in fact the whole board that really does care about the theme of complaints and not just about customer satisfaction scores. So we do care about those sort of things, and you can be rest assured, as I said, it is very much a theme in corporate New Zealand now. Are there any other questions? Okay, we have, we've missed someone. Sorry, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, does Contact have a scenario which says the climate is going to get colder, not warmer? I say this because of the scientists are out. They are out on this matter. The IPCC report, if you'd read into the middle of it, they actually have that as a possibility. There's reference to the Maunder minimum, which relates to the sunspots and so on. Now, you said earlier that the objective was reliable and sustainable supply. How, if it is colder, if the climate doesn't react as everyone expects, can you react fast enough to keep the lights on, to handle peak loads and handle the objectives of the government to have lots of electricity cars? Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that question, John. And again, I'm going to get Dennis to add to my comments because I think it's an interesting question, but I think it actually relates more to an industry as a whole rather than just Contact. But it does, I guess, allow me to mention where we think we will participate going forward into our next tranches of generation. And we have consented a wonderful field, Tihara, at Taupo. And so that allows us over time and with the right business cases and the right conditions to grow our renewable baseload electricity. And I think if one thing we learnt on our trip overseas, that baseload will still have a place, it will still be incredibly valuable. And electrical cars will, are mobile batteries as well. So that will make it an interesting sort of dynamic as we look forward. I think where our generation fleet is right now, with able to grow our baseload, but also with our thermal fleet, and we do see that thermal fleet, as Dennis mentioned, here for decades to come, as clearly security and reliability still live very, at the top of the list of electricity. Do you wish to add anything, Dennis?
Well, I think the only thing I would add, John, is all forecasts are wrong. And if you look at the response of the New Zealand market over the last 20 years to respond to those range of forecast outcomes, because what you're predicting in a cold scenario is that you have greater winter peak demand. But in the same way New Zealand grew massively in the 60s, 70s and 80s, the industry responded, the industry built generation. The current regulatory settings allow for that. So I would say whatever the scenario, the industry and Contact and our development options will be able to respond in time. The signals will be obvious enough, I believe.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your work on dividend and reducing costs. My question is, what levers exist in this financial year to grow the revenue line?
Clearly, with our flexible generation fleet that we have, and also access to sources of fuel as well, that offers us opportunity in the current market. In terms of the consumer market, that's it's been a long journey now of I guess a lot of constantly increasing competition. It's quite limited of what our potential is in those markets, and simply where we are with customer numbers and keeping those intact is is a good outcome in any given year at the moment. With that, the intensity of competition, the new entrants that are coming. Do you wish to add anything, Dennis?
Yeah, thanks, Cora. I mean, there's probably a few areas, as Rob has mentioned, intensely competitive market limits your potential to grow. But just to bring threads of a few questions together, we have developed quite a capability in helping large industrial customers decarbonise. So we've recently formed a partnership with Infratech, who are a solar provider. If you engage in social media, you'll see that we are actively promoting our broadband and energy product. So we have 3,000 broadband customers today, which we didn't have 2 years ago, so that's an opportunity. But with the current electricity market being reasonably balanced, the greatest opportunity is from that supply-demand balance and the use of our generation assets.
Could I ask, please, if we ever did get to 100%, everyone with an electric car, could the industry generate enough electricity to cover it? Given if we got to 100% instead of 10% of the population.
Again, that's very much an industry question, and you're asking it to the right people. Both Dennis and myself drive electric cars, so the question is really who's going to follow us and at what time period. I think the thing we learnt as we went overseas, though, that cars aren't just cars, electric cars, they're mobile batteries. And so as you go forward with more scale, I believe there'll be a lot more solutions that come in. And what we actually will see is the potential to reduce the peak. So there's a number of technological forces coming. New Zealand is the country with the most off-street parking in the world. So clearly, people can charge their cars at home if that's the direction. But I think in terms of cars being 100%, that's some decades away. I think a bigger question that will get asked before we ever got to that is, will people own cars in the future?
Cheryl Scott, shareholder. Do you have any charging stations in Wellington? I'm not sure whether there was one near Te Papa somewhere, or charging stations spread out through New Zealand by Contact, please.
I believe we have a charging station within 100 metres of here.
Turn right outside and you'll see
Yeah, so actually, Dennis, perhaps you just comment further on the initiatives around charging.
I mean, the question for Contact is not whether electric vehicles will be a big part of our business, it's how we participate. And we believe our participation in electric vehicles is helping customers with the right tariffs and the right incentives to use them economically. So it's unlikely we will ever own a large charging infrastructure. But at the beginning of an industry, and electric vehicles are at the beginning of an industry, what we're focusing on is encouraging the use of electric vehicles. So we have a commitment to convert our own fleet of vehicles, and we are supporting fast chargers in various locations in the country, including 3 in Wellington CBD.
I'd like to say, my name's Karen. I'd like to say that customers are at least as important as shareholders, because without customers you don't have a business. Just to follow up on the two gentlemen at the back who asked questions of a customer nature. So if, as customers, they're not happy with getting a satisfactory answer from the company, and perhaps they've rung the call centre or your answer, where do they go? I mean, who do they take it for? Because I thought it'd be best to sort out a problem if somebody's really unhappy and keep that person as a customer, than have them then be really unhappy and badmouth the company because they didn't get satisfaction.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Again, I just would draw your attention that Venna and his team are available if you don't feel as though you've got the satisfaction you need in your contact with the contact centre. So, look, the only point I'd make is what I said before is, right through the company, and I say right through, I mean the board as well. We care about, all customer complaints. We look for insights, and in 600,000 people, you'll always get some, and we'd just love to have everyone happy, but it doesn't always work out like that. But the last thing I'd leave you is look, we do care, and the company cares, and people care as well, right through the company. But there is we try, and whether it's contact centres or emails or whatever, there's a number of mechanisms to engage with the company.
What are those mechanisms?
So clearly calling the contact centre, emailing the company, but the one point I make is probably not at the shareholders' meeting.
Yeah, probably they've been disappointed and haven't got that result through the proper channels, and that's why they brought it up at the shareholder meeting. But I'm just mentioning that.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
I've had 2 people I know with other companies, and they're just not getting anywhere with their with the satisfaction with the company. So I don't want that to happen to Contact.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps I can add a little supplementary information. If you feel ever disappointed with the conduct of Contact, there is an independent utilities dispute scheme where you can escalate to an independent party, and we are obliged under our operating licences to promote that scheme, and we do that, and we pay for the process of that independent review. But I would add that our complaint level to that independent body, the utilities dispute scheme, is way below our market share, so we actually are able to resolve more complaints internally than get escalated. So we are performing reasonably well on that measure. But just to be clear, there is somewhere to go.
Are there any more questions? Okay, there are no questions from online. I will now declare the meeting closed. For those present in the room, I'd like to invite you to stay and join us for morning tea. Please feel free to talk to my fellow directors or members of the Contact senior management team. We'll all be wearing a name badge and look forward to an opportunity to talk to you. If you have a customer service query or would actually like to sign up as a customer, Venna and his team are there and more than happy to help. Thank you very much for your attendance and your continued support of Contact, and I wish you a safe journey home. Thank you.